And by people, I mean you people, my friends out there in the audience. Hi guys, I am welcoming myself back to an all-new season of Everyday Food in which we are focusing on pantry staples. And today, I'm focusing on rice. This is white rice. I keep a variety of rice on hand in my pantry, but I cook a lot of white rice because it's very fast and very delicious and very versatile. But to be honest, I keep a lot of grains on hand. Quinoa, brown rice, like all kinds of grains because they're a great way to build a meal. And they work great with leftovers. For instance, today I'm making a very veggie fried rice, which is a great use for leftover cooked rice. This is 2 cups of rice, which is actually not that much, and that's why I'm calling it very veggie fried rice, because it has more vegetables than rice. So it's a perfect thing to use leftovers because you don't always have a ton of rice left over, and it's extra healthy, but very, very delicious. One of the vegetables I'm using today is kale. You can use any green. If you can see what I'm doing here, I've already started prepping it. I'm just pulling off the stem and getting rid of it. If you are so inclined, you can dice up this stem. Actually, you know what? I think I might actually do that because it's a great way not to waste something. And right now we're just talking about not wasting and I'm throwing stems away. But you can put them in the compost if you have a compost. You can juice them if you're prone to juicing, so save them. You can also dice them up and saute them. And that's what I'm gonna do today. Even though I think you probably already saw me throw away about half. Anyway, so the veggies in this very veggie fried rice are kale, or another hardy green, zucchini. I have here, this is about 4 ounces of zucchini, and I'm using a combination of frozen peas and carrots, you know, the kind that you buy in the bag, they're frozen peas and carrots. Those are a great ingredient because it's 2 ingredients in one, and I'm always looking for ways to sort of conserve on ingredients and get the most bang for my buck. And so having something like frozen peas and carrots in your freezer, it's just another great way of extending your pantry. We're talking about pantry here. It's things that you can have on hand, not necessarily just things that are in your pantry, like the cupboard that you open, but I extend that to include things that live in my freezer, that live in my refrigerator, like condiments and things like that, as well as things that are in my cabinet. So I am gonna chop this. I did it lengthwise, then crosswise. I find that with kale and other greens, if you cut them into long strips, it's mostly with soup, but even when you're like stir frying them and they get hot and then they sort of, when you're eating it and it swings out and hits you in the chin, that's not nice. So I chop it. And then the stems themselves, just very, very thinly slice them. And these do take a tiny bit longer to cook than the kale itself. Oh, speaking of which, I'm gonna turn this on because I wanna start getting it hot. Back to the kale stems, they take a tiny bit longer to cook than the rest of these vegetables to get tender. But to be fair, they're gonna add a little bit of nice crunch, which is never out of place. For flavoring, I have minced garlic, sesame oil, and some ginger. And I'm gonna peel my ginger using my, I was gonna say like my famous trick. It's not my famous trick. Lots of people do this, but take a thin-edged spoon and then run it along the garlic. Run it along the ginger to remove the skin. And what happens is just the skin or the peel is removed. And it's actually really great to work around those little knobs. But, all right, so I did call to peel this in this recipe. This is my recipe. I developed it for the magazine and I called to peel it. But you know what I've been doing lately? Clean your ginger, scrub it, and then I just mince it with the skin on. No one's any the wiser, and it saves me a little bit of time. And mincing ginger, just like mincing garlic, can be kind of annoying. You can buy jars of minced ginger, which is really convenient, but I don't know. I don't like the flavor as much. I don't mean to be rude. You should use it if it makes your life easier. I want people's lives to be easy. I want you to make these recipes. I don't want you to be like, well, I'm not gonna mince ginger and garlic, so I'm not making that recipe. I'd rather have you make the recipe. This is heating up. The first thing that goes in are the veg. You're gonna saute them in a little bit of oil. I have a tendency to like to add my vegetables that take a little bit longer to cook before I add my aromatics, in this case the ginger and the garlic, so that they don't burn. Zucchini, this was one small zucchini, about 4 ounces. The kale, the kale stems. Kale stems. Sure, give that a stir around. Season. Here's the great thing about fried rice, rice in general, mixes with almost anything. Different flavor profiles too. If you don't want to go this ginger and garlic route, you can go a little bit more Mediterranean, still garlic, but no ginger, maybe a little bit of onion. Wow, this gets hot. I like it. Then the kale. Because the rice is cooked already, I add that a little bit later. And then the final thing that I'm going to add to this Very Veggie Fried Rice, which I feel like I didn't even mention before, it's Very Veggie Fried Rice with eggs cooked into it. So it's a really nice and hearty meal. And a lot of fried rice recipes have eggs in them, but often they're made into like an omelet and cut up, or they're scrambled right into the fried rice. In this case, I'm cracking the eggs into little divots in the fried rice mixture and cooking them right in there. So this should cook for about 3 minutes. You want everything to just start wilting down a little bit. I did season it with a little bit of salt. If you had a little soy sauce and you wanted to use that, you could. If you had a little fish sauce and you wanted to use that, you could. I don't use fish sauce a ton at home because my kids don't love it, but it's actually one of my favorite flavors. This is starting to look good. So now I'm gonna add that ginger and the garlic. It's a couple teaspoons of each. If your pan is looking like kind of dry, which mine is, don't be afraid to add a little bit more oil. You're gonna add more oil anyway when you add the rice, but I feel like I just added that ginger and garlic and it's not gonna fry in anything. I don't want it to steam. I want the oil and the cooking to sort of bring out the real aromatics of it and fry it just a little bit. 30 seconds approximately. And then a little bit more oil, it's actually a couple tablespoons. Rice can be kind of sticky, so we'll see what happens. 2 cups of cooked white rice. When I'm cooking rice at home in a pot, I usually use a ratio of about 1 cup of rice to 1 1/3 to 1.5 cups of water, which is lower than most packages say. I find that I'm cooking it on the stove because you're cooking it so low. If you use the 2-to-1 ratio, it's really, really gummy. But I'll cook rice. I have a rice cooker too, and I use that mostly. And it cooks your rice perfectly for you every time. If you like to cook grains, like any kind of grain, rice or quinoa or I guess farro, I've never done it, but rice cookers are really great for that. And you can have perfectly cooked grains on hand whenever you want. Let's not forget this. This is 1 cup of those frozen, slightly defrosted peas and carrots. I know it seems weird, and you can use fresh. In fact, I often do, but it is a nice thing to have on hand, and it's very, very convenient. So stir this around, and then add a little bit of sesame oil. A teaspoon or 2 is great. Toasted sesame oil, which I'm using here, is a very intense and fragrant flavoring. Make sure you always smell it before you use it because it can go rancid very quickly. Now you can make some divots in your mixture, and that's where the eggs are gonna go. Add a little bit more oil, just a tiny bit in each little hollow. Cook your eggs. You could cook this in a cast iron skillet, which is what I use at home. It's my most used skillet. This is enameled cast iron, which is also really nice. Or even a nice heavy non-stick skillet works. I don't use a lot of non-stick skillets. I consider my cast iron skillet to be non-stick, but I know people like them. And by people, I mean you people, my friends out there in the audience. This needs to cook for about 3 minutes. I'm gonna season with salt and pepper. And then my big trick for getting these to cook evenly is to cook them with heat under them for about 3 minutes and then turn the heat off, cover it, and let the residual heat steam the egg whites. That's my big trick. I really do not like my egg whites to be runny, but I like a runny yolk, and this is a great way to accomplish that. Okay, I think this is good. Really smells good. Shall I eat some to prove that it's good? Fragrant from the ginger, garlic, and sesame oil. Great use of leftovers. Great use of rice, a pantry item. If you have other grains in your pantry, you can make it with that. Quinoa would be really good here. I know I don't have to convince you guys that rice is a great thing to have on hand, but it really is, and you can use it for things like fried rice, soups, chicken and rice, even like a breakfast porridge is a great thing to make out of rice. And a lot of those things can be made with pre-cooked rice. So like I was saying earlier, cook rice once or twice during the week and keep it on hand, cooked in your refrigerator, and you'll always have a great meal. Make this meal and then share it with everybody because it's so easy and so delicious and really, really, really variable. Delicious the way that it is, but I'm gonna add a little bit of cilantro because why not? If this had the fish sauce in it, it would also be excellent with cilantro and maybe a little bit of lime, but I'm gonna use hot sauce today. Flavors. Give this recipe a try. It's a fantastic use of a pantry staple rice, and it's really, really delicious. So good. If you like recipes like this, click like, subscribe, and comment in the comments, what's your favorite rice dish? Let me know.